The president's senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has turned over documents to special counsel Robert Mueller's team. The files are about Kushner's role in the firing of FBI Director James Comey in May. And this comes as Attorney General Jeff Sessions faces scrutiny over his knowledge of contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign. So Paula Reid is outside of Sessions' office at the Department of Justice right now to answer a few of these questions. So the Attorney General under fire again for testimony that he made under oath in front of Congress. It's sort of like an album with a scratch in it. No, I wasn't aware of anybody meeting with Russians, any talk of Russians. Oh, I forgot about this meeting that I just had. What are the ramifications here?
Folks on the Hill are calling for him to come back and answer questions about whether or not he committed perjury for failing to disclose the fact that George Papadopoulos, this national security advisor to the campaign, had brought up some of his Russia connections and had even tried to pitch the idea of a meeting between then candidate Trump and President Vladimir Putin. But this happened a year before Sessions testified. So I think when people assess the truthfulness of Sessions' statements, you have to ask yourself, is it reasonable that he would have remembered what a very young 29-year-old campaign aide would have suggested in a meeting? Sources also tell us that Sessions immediately shot the suggestion down and they moved along. We're also told that Sessions does not recall Papadopoulos as being particularly memorable or these suggestions as really being memorable at all. So you just have to ask yourself, would you remember what a younger associate suggested at a meeting a year prior? As a lawyer, it does not appear to be an obvious case of perjury, but Jeff Sessions hasn't done himself any favors because, of course, he has failed to disclose meetings that he had with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. That's what brought him back up to Congress last time, that he had to answer questions about why he did not disclose that during his confirmation hearing. And I think most people would agree that it is much more likely that you will remember meetings that you had as opposed to a meeting someone else suggested.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Mueller has not been contacted by, Mueller has not contacted Sessions, has not asked him to testify. Is that because maybe, like you said, this doesn't appear to be that big of a deal, or is it that Mueller's really focused on Manafort in that case?
Well, let's look at the role that Sessions could play in this overall investigation. We know that his deputy, Rod Rosenstein, has gone and spoken with Mueller, answered some questions. Rosenstein is potentially a witness to the line of inquiry about whether or not there was obstruction of justice in the firing of James Comey. But we know that, again, Attorney General Sessions, as you said, he has not been called to talk to Mueller or to testify before the grand jury. And it's possible that Mueller is looking at Sessions as more of a focus about this overall question of collusion and not just a witness to the question of obstruction of justice. I think that speaks also to the fact that Sessions was involved in assembling this national security team. He was really a key player in the campaign, but it should make him a little bit nervous that he has not been called in yet when his deputy was called in several months ago. It suggests again that he is perhaps a focus of the investigation and not just a mere witness.
So let us talk about the president's son-in-law. Mueller's team has contacted Jared Kushner, asked him to hand over some documents. What do you suppose the special counsel is looking for from Kushner?
From Kushner specifically, they're looking to anything that is related to the decision to fire James Comey. The sources tell us that Kushner was involved in that decision, but Mueller probably wants to know more about how involved was he. But the fact that Kushner is being asked to turn over these documents at this point, again, it suggests that he is a witness, that they want any information that he may possess about how this decision was made. Sources close to the process tell CBS News that Kushner has provided documents, but they mostly were email messages from his private account, and there was nothing relevant in his White House account. The grand jury will be back at federal court today to start poring over more evidence. And then, Marie, as this investigation moves forward, it's becoming increasingly intense and, of course, increasingly public. The judge in the case, she has threatened to slap a gag order on all the lawyers in the case, expressing her frustration with all the statements that have been made to the public.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. The judge in the case with Paul Manafort and Gates is very concerned about the intense media attention. What else did she have to say about this?
This was the first time yesterday when Manafort and Gates came back to court. This was the first time that they appeared before Judge Amy Berman Jackson. She's an Obama appointee. She's been on the bench for about 7 years. And Anne Marie, she set the tone from the outset of that hearing. She meant business. She criticized the attorneys right off the bat. She said, look, this is a criminal trial. This is not a public relations campaign. And she said that she is considering a gag order because the defense attorneys held a little mini press conference after the last hearing where they criticized the government's case. Her biggest concern is, of course, that these kinds of public declarations, this could potentially taint a jury pool that they will eventually need to assemble if this goes to trial. Now, she's also not particularly open to these suggestions from defense counsel to make Manafort and Gates not have to wear these GPS monitoring devices. Their lawyers were pleading with the judge yesterday, saying, please, our clients do not need to wear these. The judge didn't seem open to that. She still seems to think that they do pose a flight risk. But she does appear open to the question of perhaps allowing them more freedom to go back and forth to their home because they're currently on home confinement. But she'll make her decision when we're all back in court on Monday.
Well, I think Manafort doesn't go to trial till next year, right, Paula?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would expect this case to take a while. She tentatively mentioned an April trial date, but at this point in the case, it's way too soon to say specifically when this case would go to trial.
Yeah, that would be an awful long time to remain on house arrest. Paula Reid, thanks a lot.